Okay.
We're going to move on to obeying them, which is a very important aspect of Islam in general. Parents should not be mistreated. Even if they are wrong, we should not say bad words or express our anger to them. And the verse says, "And your Lord has commanded that you do not worship anyone except Him alone, and do good to the parents. If one of them or both of them reach old age in your presence, even then do not say to them, 'Oof,' and do not scold them, and speak to them a generous speech." Okay? So even in old age, when they're not making sense anymore, when it's difficult to have a conversation with them, we cannot get upset with them. We can't get frustrated. Even now, as you guys are a little bit younger and your parents are also a little bit younger, you might have disagreements, but you are in no position to mistreat your parents or say anything bad to your parents. You can disagree with your parents, that is okay, but it has to be in a respectful manner and always a justified manner. Um, there's the story of, I think we covered Luqman alayhi salam and his son. I do believe that was one of our earlier chapters. Does anybody remember Luqman?
Yeah.
What was the basic story of Luqman alayhi salam? It was pretty easy.
Um, he was like a slave, but he wasn't mistreated, and his master, I guess, asked him to bring like he was a wise person, like a very wise person. So his master wanted to test it, kind of. So he asked him to bring the worst parts or the best parts of the sheep, and he brought the heart and the tongue. And then uh, his master asked him to bring the worst parts, or maybe it was the other way around: first the worst, and then the best. Anyway, he brought the same things, and then when he was asked for his reasoning, he said, uh, the heart can be either the purest or the dirtiest. Same with the tongue. Yeah.
Perfect. It's good. That is one of the stories of Luqman alayhi salam, and that's the best way to show his wisdom. Uh, and yeah, exactly. That relates to the purity of your heart and your tongue. They're both controlled by the user, and by both ways, they're methods of benefit and they're methods of destruction. They could be your own or somebody else's. In that sense, we should always be controlling our tongues in front of our parents. It says, "Do not say oof in front of your parents." So even the little ugh, the eye roll, any of it, the facial expression, all of it is not allowed. Okay. The Quran prohibits us from marrying people who are idol worshippers. It is better to marry a believing maid servant than an idolatress. Similarly, a believing male servant is better than marrying an idolater. However, if an idol worshiper accepts Islam before marriage, then there is no problem. The verse here it says, "And do not marry the idolatresses until they believe, while a believing maid is better than an idolatress, even though she allures you. And do not give in marriage to idolaters until they believe, while a believing slave is better than a polytheist, even though he allures you. These invite to the fire, while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls to the garden and forgiveness with his authority, and he makes clear his messages from mankind that perhaps they may mind." All right, so it was a long verse. Short explanation is that in Islam, part of this social relationship that we have with others is we do not marry individuals that are atheists or polytheists or idol worshippers. It is acceptable in Islam. It is always recommended in Islam to marry another Muslim or somebody who believes in Islam, however strong their faith or however weak their faith, as long as they're a Muslim. It's part of that relationship. It's part of marriage is getting stronger together. So if one individual is a little bit stronger in the religion than another, hopefully they support the other individual to bring them both up and make their faith stronger. So always number one is marrying within Islam. it is acceptable to marry a Christian or a Catholic as well as a Jew, because both of them are, those other two religions are part of the Abrahamic faith, and they come from the same root, and the foundation of beliefs are the same. Um, does
There
anybody have any questions
couple
about it?
couple points, little more details, if you will. So, getting married with people who are not Christian or Jews has conditions that the person you are marrying should be pure in the sense of his not having moral problems, like dating and things like those. The person should be virgin, should not be involved in bad behaviors and profanity, or like not have good character, and abusive and things like those. But also, women are not allowed to marry even a Christian person. This is only specifically for male to marry a Christian or Jew woman. And the reason is that typically in relationships, men are more stronger, and have influence on the children. So as Muhammad mentioned, that if one is a strong Muslim and other is weak Muslim, they help each other to bring up the other person who is weak, become a strong Muslim. But Islam also looks at your next generation. So if a woman married a Christian father of her son or daughter, like, they have more influence. The father has more influence on the kids, and he want to send them to the church, and women could not argue and agree with it, but still he has a strong personality. He would let the kids go to church, and your kids would become Christians in the end. So that is why for women it's not allowed to marry even Christian, anybody else, and not from the idol worshiper. More explanation of this is that anybody who is worshiping either atheist or worshiping fire or whatever is not considered as to be marrying with for Muslims.
I do believe there is an argument to be made in this day and age that it's not necessarily the case that a woman or the man's faith is going to be put onto the kids, but that's a whole other argument. Uh, Nonetheless, the main focus is the recommendation, and the easiest, what will make your life the easiest, and your spouses, is to just marry inside of Islam, because in that way it'll strengthen both of your faiths. Any questions on it, on this little bit? If not, we can move on. And this next section just literally addresses what Mustafa's question was. It says, the Quran also prohibits us from marrying certain close family relations, a mother, a sister, an aunt, or a stepmother. And the other way around, a father, a brother, an uncle, or a stepfather. The term used for this kind of close relationship is mahram. A person cannot marry his or her mahram. The Quran prohibits gossip, spreading rumors, spreading slander, spying on others, and creating suspicion. I think this is a big thing for certain individuals. If you find yourself to be the kind of individual who is allured by gossip or just talking about other people when they're not there, I would highly recommend that you focus on it, and you recognize when you are doing it, and you recognize when you are in those situations, because this is actually it's very important to not get caught up in gossip or slandering. And the reason for this is there are two types of sins. Okay, there's the sin against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's the sin of I missed Fajr, or I didn't fast today in Ramadan, or I did something wrong that transgressed against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the best way to get forgiven for that is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, give your charity, and follow it up with a good deed. It doesn't have to be charity. I'm saying follow up your bad deed with a good deed, and inshallah, you will be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the most forgiving. The issue when it comes to backbiting or slandering or gossip is it's an entirely different sin altogether. This is a sin that transgresses against another human being. And when it comes to those sins, you have to ask that individual personally for his forgiveness in order to be forgiven for that sin. And as we know, some people are not as forgiving as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, nobody is as forgiving as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's always the fear that you may not be forgiven. Inshallah, you will be, but either way, it's an entirely different process. And in that sense, it's much more difficult to get forgiven for slandering or backbiting somebody. So if you find yourself in these situations, always try to be mindful of it. Try to stop it when you see it. If somebody's just making fun of somebody as they leave a room, or just when they're not there, it is their right upon you for you to defend them, because they're not there. They cannot defend themselves.
I have a question.
What's up?
Like when you go to like the Day of Judgment, how like Allah makes you see like all the bad deeds and all the good deeds you do. Right. If you say that you gossips against somebody and you didn't tell them about it, but then they hear it when you do the thing in the Day of Judgment and they forgive you, will that sin go away?
This is the issue. On the Day of Judgment, this is going to be a time where nobody has any real consideration for even their closest relatives. A mother will be running away from her child. A husband will be running away from his wife. In this situation, you are going to be in a very selfish mode. It's just the reality. Everybody is going to be worried about themselves. So when it comes to that time, unfortunately, once an individual finds out that there was backbiting against him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will offer that individual's good deeds of the transgressor, the guy who did the wrong. He will offer some of his good deeds to compensate for the individual who got backbiting, and he will accept it. So that it's going to be a transfer of the person who was in the wrong of some of his good deeds to another individual. Okay, does that make sense? Now this could happen many times. If you are somebody who backbites a lot, or you're somebody who likes to gossip, you might have a lot of individuals on that list, and eventually your good deeds, which you have worked so hard for throughout your entire life, will start to dwindle down. You'll be less and less and less. And you might even reach a point where you do not have any more good deeds, but there are still people you transgressed against, and there's still people who need to get their fair share. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, you can now place some of your bad deeds upon this individual because he doesn't have any credit left. He doesn't have anything to give back. So you can give your bad deeds to him. And eventually you'll start going negative. You will not have any good deeds left, and you will only be in the negative. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on you in that situation. So it's a very scary and a very dire situation. It's maybe not something that is talked about a lot, but I think it definitely should be.
Mohammed, a quick question. Do you want to distinguish between gossip and slander?
Is there a real difference? Because
Yes.
I'm not completely aware.
Okay, so just quickly, gossip is when you are telling something about a person when it's not present. Mohammed, you remember, you want to tell it?
You go for it.
Okay, so you are telling truth about a person who is not present, and Only thing is that that person, what are you telling about him? He's gonna not like it if he was here. That's just gossip. Like you say something, he eats a lot, right? He's like, eat like a pig. So that person, if it is here, he's not gonna like it. So you don't, if he's not present and you say and people laugh at it, it's gossip. If you tell that that same person actually is not have a big appetite, but he doesn't actually eat a lot, and you tell while he's not here that he eats a lot, he's like whatever, that is slander. And because he doesn't, you're telling a lie about him and you're ruining his reputation when he's not such person. So there's a difference between gossip and slander is worse than gossip. Muhammad, do you want to give some examples of like social media and stuff, like how different ways people would slander and gossip, but they wouldn't think it's just fun and stuff?
I don't know. I don't have a lot of personal experience. I don't use social media a ton, but there are definitely, and when it comes to celebrities, a lot of them throw shade at each other. I don't know if you guys are into celebrity stuff either. You shouldn't be. It's kind of whack. It's not, but they tend to throw shade at each other. It's subtly insulting one another. In that sense, it's also wrong. Uh,
Memes, you create fun, no?
You're okay. I think memes are fine.
If it's slander, then it's not, right?
Well, memes a joke.
Yeah, okay,
I don't know.
go ahead.
I think memes are fine, but I have no fatwa on whether memes are halal or haram. But there is this social aspect of social media where you're presenting the best parts of yourself, and even that in itself is kind of weird. It's kind of misrepresenting you and just your circle of people. This doesn't have to do anything with slander or gossip, but it's something you should also be aware of. Is that the people that you see on social media, this is not the true reality of how they live. Uh, Other individuals may call them out on that. Um, I think the basics is the social media is a very strange place, especially when it comes to strangers online. I would highly recommend when you use social media, you use it to interact with close physical friends. That's how I use it. I talk to my friends from when I grew up. I talk to my friends from school, and I talk to friends from my work. However it is, I kind of I want to know that individual though before I start interacting with them online, especially in a consistent manner or an intimate manner. However, um, so yeah, be careful with social media. I would recommend keeping it close to your physical friends, because you could fall down the slippery slope of maybe just talking bad about somebody online. I don't know, but social media is a weird thing that you should be careful with. But you do understand the dangers of slander and gossip. So gossip being uh, telling the truth about somebody, but it's still insulting them without them being there. And then slander is telling a lie about somebody without them knowing, that would make them upset behind their back. So both of these things, uh, they're on the day of judgment. If you were found with these two, it could be very detrimental to your akhirah.
What about dead people?
Talking about dead people, I wouldn't recommend it, dude. Like, um, yeah.
What it means like dead bad people like Hitler.
See, you're not when you talk about Hitler. Um, it's like you can say Hitler was a bad guy, but these are mostly they're like facts. Hitler was an awful human being. Hitler was a sociopath. Hitler was a mass murderer. Um, but yeah, I understand when you say Hitler, but what if you're talking about somebody, I don't know, that you're an old enemy that has died, maybe when you grow up, when you're a little older, he dies, you're like, oh man, I hated that dude. He was annoying. You can't do that. That's wrong. For one, it's just disrespectful, and the other, from my knowledge, I would believe it would fall in the category of just backbiting, because they're not there. I wouldn't do that, and it's just disrespectful. Don't disrespect the dead. They're already gone. Pray for them, if anything. Pray for their well-being in the afternoon. But I understand what you mean when you're talking about like dead historical figures. I think as long as you're not, being weird about it. If you're just stating facts, you're okay. Any other questions on social interactions? It could be about the marriage. It could be about your parents. It could be about what did we just talk about? Slander or anything. If not, we have one little more section to go through for this lesson. I think maybe we'll see if you guys have any more questions and how much time we have left. Now we're almost out. Oh yeah, we'll just next week we'll get to the lesson of Laylatul Qadr, the night of majesty, which is one of the nights of Ramadan. We'll get to that next week. Goddamn. And we'll just finish up this for the lesson today. So it also says the Quran also prohibits breaking an oath or breaking a promise. If for any reason someone breaks an oath or promise, then he or she must fast for a certain number of days or feed poor people to be excused from breaking the oath or promise. The list of social prohibitions is long, but we must remember to behave well and never violate good morals. So this is just one more aspect. You shouldn't break contracts. You shouldn't break promises. That's a general rule of thumb. In order to be a trustworthy individual, that's going to benefit you in the work environment, in your school environment, in your friend circle. Being a trustworthy individual is very nice. It's gonna help you a lot. Baba, do you have any explanation for white lies?
White lies?
Yeah, small lies.
Oh, small lies. Like only lie I know that is allowed is that when you are lying to reconcile two people that are fighting, Muslims. So your two friends pout, and then you go to one person and said, you know what, I met with the other person and he thought he was too much and he was embarrassed. Yeah, he didn't feel good. He was feeling guilty and he want to make peace with you. So you may go ahead and approach him. So though they didn't came to you and ask for that, you actually helping those people by telling against him lie. And even a woman or a husband can lie for the spouse that you're looking very pretty, and if you make a mistake that you do those things. But that could be a lie, but it's like making good relationship and getting out of the fight.
Outside of that context, however, is not allowed to lie in any situation.
Okay.
You can lie in worst case scenario when somebody has a gun, you at a gunpoint, and asking you if you are Muslim, I'm going to kill you. You can lie for saving your life that I'm not. That's the only. It depends on your iman. You can. If you are ready to die for it, yeah, go ahead. Allah Ta'ala is going to put you in Jannah. You're a shaheed, but you're allowed to lie at that point only.
Yeah, I read someplace that there are only 3 circumstances in which you can lie. 2 of them you kind of mentioned, if it's to save a life or to save a marriage, and the third is like during a time of war, you can like keep war secrets from the enemy. But even in those times, it's best to conceal the truth rather than straight up lie. That's what I read.
think that would follow with what we have to
Yeah,
say. You're just
I
adding
agree.
to the list, which is relevant. When it comes to war, there was a lot of spying going on, espionage. Uh, that is also okay because that is information gathering. Um, what about? See, this is kind of questions that aren't really applicable to our own lives, but I'm curious. What about infiltrating a different nation, Baba? What about espionage in the way it is today, where you have actual physical traitors inside of other nations' law enforcement?
If it is what we call it, like hackers get in and take uh, espionage and spy on other people, Prophet ﷺ has used this strategy only for in war situation when there's a war going on. So first, actually, you have to define a war. Now it's mostly an economic war. So this changes the whole discussion about is it fair game? You're not, nobody's suppressing you or pushing you out of your home. So why you're retaliating like that? It's only for the financial benefit. Then it is not good. But they put it in the sense of different stuff now, like national security. How do you define national security? And is it national security of the financial security of your nation? Then it doesn't come under the category of retaliation according to Islam and all that. So yeah, devil in the details, but it is allowed. Prophet ﷺ also had, or his caliphs also have done espionage or finding the position of the enemy or whoever is the thing like those as a war strategy.
We talked about Khalid ibn Walid, his nickname was the Sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was his nickname. He was one of the best generals, was in 80 battles, did not lose a single one of them. And he himself had individuals in his party that were specifically tasked to spy on the enemies. This is for troop number, troop size, what equipment they have. All that's just information.
I have an unrelated question.
Before we get to that, I just want to address Omar's question, which is, what about if you're hiding a present from someone or a surprise birthday party? That is halal. You can do that. That's just being a good friend.
I have a question that's not related to the topic. Is it haram to fight for a country that's like not a Muslim country in a war, or can you fight for any country?
A time of war. So I don't think it matters what country. It matters for what cause. What is the cause of the war? What is your goal when fighting this war? Is the goal to eventually bring peace, or is it to exploit the other nation that you are fighting against? When you're fighting an unjust war, it's not halal. You shouldn't be a part of that. It's one of the reasons that Muhammad Ali, the boxer I'm talking about, he refused to fight in the Vietnam War because he knew it was an unjust war. And it was an oppression of the Vietnamese people, and he refused to fight. He went to jail for it. He went to jail because he was part of the mandatory draft, and he refused to go. But war itself is not haram. War itself was a significant part of Islam. Our battle against the Quraysh and all the idol at the time. But the easiest way to put it is that you have to be fighting a just war.
Yeah, and so the first command came into war is retaliation against Quraysh. Was the point that would you not fight for the oppressed people that are stuck in Makkah and could not practice his religion, and would you not fight with the people who expelled you out from your home from Makkah and kept all your stuff and all that? So when it comes to oppression, it's always is recommended and required sometimes to retaliate and to save because saving your property, saving your life, saving your religion is part of the Sharia to be protected at all means. I just a quick comments on the spying. And so spying or eavesdropping or listening to some other person's conversation, either is Muslim or not, is also prohibited. And so if you are, because you are breaching their privacy and breaching their trust, so it is not allowed to get curious and put your nose in or eavesdrop in somebody else's conversation and things like those. So it's also haram.
I did forget to mention that. That is definitely a part. Eavesdropping is definitely not allowed in Islam. Listening to somebody else's conversation that is confidential, that does not involve you, and revealing yourself to that information is not right. Unless, as we discussed, under a war circumstance where you're spying or something like that. But do you have any comment to make on war itself? Wars for freedom, obviously allowed. Wars against oppression, of course. But wars for financial gain. Baba, do you have any?
Yeah, I don't think it's not allowed for financial gains and taking an upper hand in the economy and controlling the wealth of the world, and controlling the masses through their need for financial well-being.
What if okay. See, what if it's about financial independence of a nation from a different nation?
I think it will become part of politics and national security for that sake. I have to research, but yeah, and property also comes in the category of something that need to be protected and safeguarded, and you could fight for it. For example, if some robber comes into your house and wanting to take all your money and all that, you are allowed to kill him, because property is also considered sacred as life and mind and religion, and it is allowed to fight for it against an oppressor.
So in that sense, self-defense is justified in Islam.
I have two questions.
Yeah, that's it.
Is it haram to intervene in a war which you have like no kind of like cause for?
You have no like skin in. You have no. Right, I know what you mean.
Like no relation.
Only reference I can give is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when went in Medina. They made a pact with the tribes around it that we are going to defend whoever is being attacked as a whole community force. So yeah, if you have a contract of certain things, even if it's not directly your matter, but if you have a contract with other people that we are going to defend each other together, like coalition that is being made for peacekeeping in the world, and it's a just war, as Muhammad said, I think it's allowed to participate.
Right. So in politics, countries have alliances. In order to maintain these alliances, they defend each other. The nations defend each other, and in that sense, it's halal to even if you don't have. Well, see, the issue is you do have a stake in the war. If one of your allies is going to war, then you have a stake, because that is a relationship that you may depend on in a certain way, and therefore you do have a stake in the war.
What do you mean, like not like an alliance? Like you favor, like not like a full like alliance? Like you just favor one side because of political ideologies or something?
Yeah. I understand this as well, but do you have a better answer?
I think you have to keep the morals that Islam talked about, oppression and things like those, into context, and justice in the context. Like you don't want to support a country who is oppressing, for example, a minority, and they are invading and all that, and you know their intent is to take away their resources or something like that, which is against Islam morals, then you don't participate. So
but
I think
the idea is to support the individual that is being oppressed by helping them in war. It's justified. Again, it's about the cause. What is the cause of war? What is the goal of the war? You said you had one more question?
Yes, is it haram to hire mercenaries to fight a war for you?
That's a good question.
I think you can ally with anyone. I don't know what is the definition of mercenaries.
Paying somebody to fight a war for you.
Yeah, mercenary means a gun for hire. They have no ideology. They have no alliance. The only reason they fight for you is because you pay them. The
I don't
U.S.
think there is any-
Hitman?
I don't.
So like a hitman?
They're not hitmen because hitmen are hired for assassinations, specific individuals, usually political individuals, to be assassinated. Mercenaries fight. They're kind of foot soldiers, but they're paid. They're paid foot soldiers. Well,
Yeah.
soldiers
I
themselves
don't-
are paid, but mercenaries, that's their job.
Yeah, Islam doesn't. I don't see it as haram or listed as haram. Anything that is not comes defined as haram is halal. So I think in some of the strategies, even assassination is being used in Islamic world, and for the purpose of again killing an oppressor and a just war situation and things like those. So those things are fair game, I guess. Wallah alam.
What do I have to say? Yeah, the U.S. once hired German mercenaries to fight against. Or no, the British hired German mercenaries to fight against the U.S. It seems justified, in my own opinion. But yeah, we don't have a specific ruling.
I have a question.
Go for it, Miguel.
What if you are you're fighting a war that it's not for Muslim and you die? Is it shahada or not?
Good question.
I would say same example as if you have you can get into the federation or support other non-Muslim countries or a person as long as he's doing a just war. Again, same example. Prophet ﷺ do a pact with the non-Muslims, Jews, and others, and even polytheists in Makkah. In Medina, to fight against any enemy, common enemy who attacks them. So as long as they're fighting against oppression and just war, you can fight.
What would you be considered a shahada if you were killed in battle?
I don't
Dude,
know the
why?
answer.
Are there any other questions? If not, we have one more section to get through. We'll go through this quickly. Or actually, we'll go through it really quickly. I'm just going to read off what it says. It's prohibitions related to sexual matters. Islam does not encourage the casual interaction of men and women. Islam does not permit boys and girls to date or have intimate relationships before marriage. It does not mean a boy has to hate a girl or a girl has to hate a boy. The Quran commands that both the sexes should restrain their sexual desires. They should lower their gaze in front of each other and not stare at each other. When a man and woman are married to each other, Islam wants them to be loyal to one another. They are prohibited from having close relationships with the opposite gender. The Western society that often allows unnatural relationships between two men or two women, but Islam strictly prohibits such relationships. In this lesson, we have briefly discussed the lawful and unlawful things in life. The use of the word law indicates these matters are complex to understand and interpret. They are analyzed and interpreted by Islamic jurists, that is, those who are qualified to interpret Islamic law. For simplicity, we should remember to follow the clear instructions given in the Quran and the Sunnah. The prohibitions are clearly mentioned in the Quran, and there cannot be any doubt about what is wrong. Therefore, we should follow the words of the Quran and avoid everything that is prohibited. So that briefly covers homosexuality. We've talked about this before. It is haram to be a homosexual. But at the end of the day, they are a minority, and in this country, we will defend each other's rights as a neighboring minorities to those rights, to the rights that they deserve. Um, they should not be discriminated against. They should not be prosecuted. They should not be just oppressed because of their sexual orientation. All of that is wrong. That is haram in itself. But at the end of the day, it is also haram to be a homosexual. Obviously, you should be loyal to your spouse. That's pretty obvious. You should just be doing that. Anybody have any quick questions on this last topic on intimate relationships? If not, as we concluded, it talked about Islamic jurists, which is the jurisprudence or the Sharia law of Islam. The Islamic law is very complicated, and we've discussed a few aspects of it, but all of this is a very complex structure of understanding that is very detailed, and people get PhDs in this kind of stuff. So forgive us if we didn't give the best answers to you guys. We did our best, inshallah. And at the end of the day, there are certain things in the Quran and the Sunnah that are prohibited, and the best way to go about that is to clearly follow those instructions. Yeah. If there are no more questions, or go for it.
Just a quick comments on the relationships and all that. So the basic idea, the bottom line for Islam is taking the responsibility of your actions and keeping the society clean and responsible, because relationships would lead into irresponsible behavior. You see kids being born, abortion happening because of these things. People don't take responsibility, and there are like how many millions of people in wedlock where the spouse doesn't take the responsibility, premarital relationship, and this ruins the whole society. There's so many orphans, so many wedlock people are not being taken care of. So, and zina, which is actually fornication, that's the biggest sin because of this fact. And the relationships being girlfriend or boyfriend actually leads to that big issue of zina and not taking responsibility of the children being born out of it, out of marriage and things like those. So those are the aspects for the reason to save the whole society. Islam prohibits irresponsible behavior. This comes into irresponsible behavior to the human life for that sake. So all that.
There's always this argument of, how are you going to know somebody if you don't date them beforehand? How are you going to know who they are? How are you going to marry somebody that you don't even know? You never even went on a date with them. The issue with that is in Islam, we're getting married at a time where there's a certain time that you should be getting married. It's around when you're about to finish your college, done with college, starting your job. You are in like that part of your life is going to be about finding a spouse, and at that time you may be introduced to individuals that are already people that you know. They're in the community. So Islam is a lot about community, and it's knowing the individuals in your community. You may not like know every detail about an individual, but you know who they are. And once there's no issue with having a conversation with somebody that you are interested in getting married to. And there's no limit to the amount of conversations that you can have with the individual. The limit is at the point where the relationship starts to get intimate. It starts to get physical. At that point, you would be falling down the slope of zina, of just sex outside of marriage, and that's the danger. but there is no limit to the amount that you can know an individual before you want to marry them. That should be clear.
So is it okay to have a friend girl?
Is it okay to have a friend girl? So in the Quran it says, do not even get close to zina. Don't even get close. Not just the act itself, but the entire issue is that the relationships between girls and guys always naturally, instinctively heads in that direction. If you have proper restraint, if they have proper restraint, you guys are good. But the Quran says don't even get close to it. In that sense, it's allowed. I'm assuming it's makruh. It's not favored. But I don't believe there's any dead set rule against having friends that are girls. I will tell you in the future, it may come to bite you in the back when you do get married, because it tends to be like that, especially with women. But yeah.
Okay.
If there are no questions, I've held you guys way longer than I should have. You are free to leave.
Bye.
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 Assalamu alaikum.